Hello, historians. Today we are going to start our new unit on West Africa. So, earlier in the year, we talked about what was going on in a small portion of East Africa in Egypt, but what was going on the rest of the continent? We'll talk about what was happening in the region of West Africa, which is a region that spans 16 modern day countries. Historically, there are three empires that we're going to study: Mali, Ghana, and Songhai. These are not the only great empires in Africa. There are entire college level classes about the rich history of African empires. We are only getting a small glimpse with our study of these three civilizations. So, the geography of the region is split up into several main parts. Above where West Africa starts is the Sahara Desert. This is the desert that spans the entire top of the African continent. The northern portion of Western Africa is composed of a broad band of semi arid terrain called the Sahel. And semi arid is a type of climate that is dry, but they get some rain. The Sahel is a transition zone between the dry Sahara and the humid Guinea Coast forest or the Sudanian savannas. So here is a picture of the top of Africa. We can see that the Sahara Desert spans the entire top of the continent. And right under the Sahara Desert is the Sahel. So it's very much a transition zone between the very dry Sahara to the more wet southern Africa. So, in West Africa, the Sahel stretches from the Atlantic Ocean on the west to the area of Lake Chad on the east, a distance of about 2,500 miles. It is largely a plateau of modest elevation that borders the Sahara Desert on the north and the Guinea Coast forests on the south. And a plateau is an area of flat ground at a high elevation. So it's up the mountain a little bit, but it's flat. So on a map, the Sahara Desert is the yellow part, the Guinea Coast Forest are the green part, and the Sahel is the brown portion where they mix. Rainfall in this region ranges from less than 10 inches in arid, dry, northern parts to about 50 inches a year in the south. So here are two maps. This map on the left shows the modern day countries in West Africa. And here on the right is a satellite image of the continent of Africa. So we can see the Sahara Desert up here, and we can also see that the area we're talking about is right in here. So there's a lot of green, there's that brown, the mixing of the sand and the vegetation called the Sahel. And then the Sahara Desert is mainly above where we're talking about. Because it was very, very hard to survive in the Sahara Desert. So, not many people did. So, West Africa vegetation. The flora or plants of the Western Africa or of Western Africa consist of the scrub vegetation in transitional zones known as the Sahel in the north. In the middle is a zone of savanna, and savanna is open grassland with scattered trees. Lying south of the Sahel are the Guinea Coast equatorial forests, which flourish along the Atlantic coast and extend inland for about 100 to 150 miles. So here are pictures of all three of those words. So up here we have the scrub vegetation in the Sahel. Then the middle zone is the savanna, which is right under the Sahel. That's open grassland with scattered trees. And then finally, closer to the bottom of the map where we saw a lot of that green, there are the Guinea Coast equatorial forests. So for your West Africa map, you need to color in the Sahara in yellow, the Sahel in brown or overlapping yellow and green, and the Guinea Coast forests in green. You need to draw and label in blue the Senegal River and the Niger River. And you need to draw and label in 3 different colors the Mali Empire borders, the Kingdom of Ghana borders, and the Songhai Empire borders. And we are going to look at some maps right now to make that task a little bit easier for you. So here we have that satellite image of Africa zoomed in on West Africa. You can see the bottom there is very green. Here's the transition zone or the Sahel, and then the Sahara Desert is right up here. Now you are going to add in 2 rivers. So the 2 big rivers in these 3 kingdoms were the Senegal River, and that is right up here, and the Niger River. And that does not connect to the Senegal River, but they start in a similar place, and it arches all the way around, goes down into the Atlantic Ocean, and also connects to this Benue River, which you do not need to write down on your map. So here are those 3 West African kingdoms, Mali, Ghana, and Songhai. And in this map, you can sort of see how they overlap because all of these empires happen chronologically, so they didn't exactly exist at the same time. But this map is much more similar to what I want you to draw. So I want you to draw, this map has it in red. I want you to draw the border of the Ghana Empire. And you can kind of see where these are placed based on the Atlantic Ocean placement. So you can sort of guesstimate where they're on your map, but if you don't get it perfectly, that is fine. What I do want you to draw is the border of the Ghana Empire, the border of the Songhai Empire, and it's spelled different on this, but you can spell it either way, and the border of the Mali Empire. So now we're actually going to talk about the kingdoms. So the first kingdom we'll talk about is the Kingdom of Ghana. So the Empire of Ghana was located in Western Africa in what is today the countries of Mauritania, Senegal, and Mali. The region lies just south of the Sahara Desert and is mostly savanna grasslands. Major rivers in the region, such as the Gambia River, the Senegal River, and the Niger River, served as the means of transportation and trade. The capital city of ancient Ghana was Kumbi Salah. That's where the king of Ghana lived in his royal palace. Archaeologists estimate that up to 20,000 people lived in and around the capital city. Ancient Ghana ruled from about the year 300 to 1100 CE. The empire first formed when a number of tribes called the Soninke peoples were unified under their first king, Dinga Sise. The government of the empire was a feudal government with local kings who paid tribute to the high king but ruled their lands as they saw fit. The main source of wealth for the Empire of Ghana was the mining of iron and gold. Iron was used to produce strong weapons and tools that made the empire strong. Gold was used to trade with other nations for needed resources like livestock, tools, and cloth. They established trade relations with the Muslims of northern Africa and the Middle East. Long caravans of camels were used to transport goods across the Sahara Desert. And caravans are groups of people traveling together. In the desert, they would travel with all of their goods on camels. Around 1050 CE, the Empire of Ghana began to come under pressure from the Muslims in the north to convert to Islam. The kings of Ghana refused and soon came under constant attacks from northern Africa. At the same time, a group of people called the Susu broke free of Ghana. Over the next few hundred years, Ghana weakened until it eventually became part of the Mali Empire. And now we're talking about the Mali Empire. So the Empire of Mali was located in Western Africa, as we know, and it grew up along the Niger River and eventually spread 1,200 miles from the city of Gao to the Atlantic Ocean. Its northern border was just south of the Sahara Desert. It covered regions of the modern-day African countries of Mali, Niger, Senegal, Mauritania, Guinea, and the Gambia. The Empire of Mali was established around 1235 CE. It began to lose power in the 1400s and fully collapsed in 1600 CE. The Empire of Mali was formed when a ruler named Sundita Keita united the tribes of the Malinke peoples. He then led them to overthrow the rule of the Soso. Over time, the Mali Empire became stronger and took over surrounding kingdoms, including the Empire of Ghana. Although there were many small tribes and cultural groups within the Mali Empire, most of these groups were considered part of the Mande peoples. The Mande peoples spoke similar languages and had similar cultures. People were divided into castes or strict social classes. One of the most respected castes were the farmers. And farmers were highly regarded because they provided food, which is very different than many other civilizations we studied. Just below the farmers were the artisans. Other groups included fishermen, scribes, civil servants, soldiers, and slaves. The religion of Islam was an important part of the Mali Empire. However, even though the kings, or mansas, had converted to Islam, they did not force their subjects to convert. Many people practiced a version of Islam that combined Islamic beliefs with the local traditions. Not long after the rule of Mansa Musa ended, the Mali Empire began to grow weak. In the 1400s, the empire began to lose control along the edges of its borders. Then, in the 1500s, the Songhai Empire rose to power. The Mali Empire came to an end in 1610 with the death of the last Mansa, Mahmud IV. And then finally, we get to the Songhai Empire. So the Songhai Empire was located in Western Africa, south of the Sahara Desert, and along the Niger River. At its peak, it stretched well over 1,000 miles from the current modern day country of Niger to the Atlantic Ocean. The capital of Songhai was the city of Gao, which, remember, was in the Mali civilization, which is in modern day Mali on the banks of the Niger River. So the Songhai Empire lasted from 1464 to 1591. Prior to the 1400s, the Songhai were under the rule of the Mali Empire. The Songhai Empire first came into power under the leadership of Sunni Ali. Sunni Ali was the prince of Songhai. He was being held captive as a political prisoner by the leader of the Mali Empire who ruled over the Songhai. In 1464, Sunni Ali escaped the city of Gao and took control over the city. From the city of Gao, he established the Songhai Empire and began to conquer nearby regions, including the important trading cities of Timbuktu and Djenné. In 1493, Asika Muhammad became the leader of the Songhai. He brought the Songhai Empire to its height of power and founded the Asika dynasty. Askia Muhammad was a devout Muslim. Under his rule, Islam became an important part of the empire. He conquered much of the surrounding lands and took control of the gold and salt trade from the Mali Empire. The Songhai culture became a blend of traditional West African beliefs and the religion of Islam. Daily life was often ruled by traditions and local customs, but the law of the land was based on Islam. The selling of enslaved people became important parts of the Songhai Empire. Enslaved people were used to help transport goods across the Sahara Desert to Morocco and the Middle East. Enslaved people were also sold to Europeans to work in Europe and the Americas. Enslaved people were usually captives of war, captured during raids on nearby regions. In the mid-1500s, the Songhai Empire began to weaken due to internal strife and civil war. In 1591, the Moroccan army invaded and captured the cities of Timbuktu and Gao. The empire collapsed and was divided up into a number of separate smaller states. So as you see, there's a lot of overlap here. It's impossible to just talk about one of these West African empires without talking about any of the others. Their history blends into each other. And each one of these civilizations is connected in a line, which is why we study them together. So here are my sources. You are going to take a quick survey and then complete the activity on your Canvas.